In this short video, I'm going to explain how to identify trends in Task 1 of IELTS. What I'm going to use is a bar chart that compares the number of television and computers in some countries for 1,000 people. And as you can see in this bar chart, on the x-axis, we have the number of televisions and computers per 1,000 people. On the y-axis, we have 7 countries. This can be a bit of a tricky graph to look at because you're comparing 7 countries, and within that, you're comparing the numbers of televisions and computers for each country. So in this type of bar chart, you don't want to spend all your time explaining each individual bar. Rather, you want to show that in the graph, you have some countries like the Philippines with low television and computer ownership, some countries like the USA with high television and computer ownership, and countries like France, where more people own televisions and fewer own computers. It's important in this kind of graph not to just describe the bars one by one, but to make comparisons. So first of all, you will identify some of the most dramatic differences. As I mentioned earlier, which country has the highest ownership of computers and TVs? It's the USA. Which country has the lowest ownership of computers and TVs? It's the Philippines. In France, in Sweden, in the UK, and in Saudi, the number of people who own televisions is more. But South Korea is different. More people own computers in South Korea. Next, you must write the introduction. In the introduction, I identify what kind of graph it is, what is it telling me. I can mention what's on the y-axis and the x-axis, if that helps me make my explanation clearer. It's not always necessary. What is necessary is that we identify some sort of obvious or general significant difference between countries. In most of the countries, television ownership is higher than computer ownership. Now we write the main body, and we don't write one sentence about each bar. If I say there are nearly 800 televisions per 1,000 people in the USA, there are less than 600 computers per person in the USA, that will be boring, and I will not be identifying the main differences. Do not do this. Instead, what you must do is look for comparisons, similarities, and differences. Look, in Sweden, almost the same number of televisions and the same number of computers are owned per 1,000 people. But we can contrast the USA with the Philippines, because in the Philippines, there's only about 20 televisions per 1,000 people. In the introduction, you could explain what you're going to discuss and one indication of the differences, which is that in most countries, more people own televisions. In the main body, we can split it into 2 paragraphs, a few sentences to write about the similarities and differences in television ownership, and then compare television and computer ownership between countries, and then write the conclusion. When you write about the graph, in Task 1, spend a couple minutes thinking about it. Don't be afraid to use your pen to circle the things you want to identify in the graph. Have a look. Think about it and make sure you highlight some of the similarities between countries and some of the differences. Please write 150 words.